Hi students, this is Mr. Yao. Today we're going to talk about 3.2 where we learn more key features of functions. But first, we are going to start by learning interval notation. It is something quite important and we're going to use it quite a bit starting from this unit. First, some prior knowledge. We have learned how to graph inequalities. Let's quickly graph these three inequalities. First one, x is less than 2. So 2 pointing to the left. And for b, some of you are still struggling with this, then separate the inequality so that you can make sure x is on the left side before you start graphing. So for the first one, you need to switch x to the left side. That also means switch the sign. So it's greater or equal to -2, pointing to the right at -2. Then 7 is an open circle pointing to the left. We're shading the middle part. See, x is less than or equal to -2. And x is also greater than 3, but it's connected with a union, so or, that means we're shading everything on the outside. When we solve inequalities, what kind of answers are we getting? Are we getting just one number? Well, for equations, we are getting one number. And for absolute value, we're getting like two numbers sometimes. And for inequality, we are actually getting a range of answers. And that's why we have the name interval notation. Besides writing the inequality to present the answers, we also have another way to present, which is called interval notation. And here it is. When writing interval notations, all we have to do is state where the answers start, put a comma, state where the answers end. Then put parentheses or square bracket, depending on whether the endpoints are included or not. And when we say included, if it's open circle, that means not included. If it's closed circle, that means it is included. Parentheses look like that. Square bracket look like this. We use parentheses when endpoints are not included, or when we use open circle at the indicated endpoint. And you see, it's very clear to see open circle. But for example, that first one, we have x is less than 2. Well, without the graph, I don't quite know where it starts because I only see this one number 2. But if you look at the graph, since everything is right here, I kind of know it started all the way from the left. So that's why a graph is very useful when we try to write interval notations. It's very visual that could help us write it easily. We use square bracket when endpoints are included, or when we use closed circle at the indicated endpoint. And when it's actually going forever to the left or forever to the right, these are called infinity, and that's the infinity symbol. This is the positive infinity. This one, as you can see, has a negative sign, so that's negative infinity. If you're having trouble writing the infinity sign, you can just turn your paper and write a number 8. That works as well. So for infinity, because we don't exactly know what infinity is, we don't know the value of it, that's why we will always use parentheses. Now let's actually do the questions that you just did on the top of the note page from the prior knowledge. Let's try to write these into interval notations. Let me quickly draw the graph again. So that's 2. That's -2 pointing to the right and 7 pointing to the left. Then the last one, I'm going to shade. Last one, I have -2 pointing to the left and 3 pointing to the right. Hey, next. I might have made a mistake. I think the notes actually has a 3 here. Okay, next. I'm going to start looking for where my graph starts. You can see I have an arrow pointing all the way to the left. That means my graph is starting from -infinity. Then I keep on going to the right, it stops at this 2. For infinity, bullet point 3 on the top just said is going to always be parentheses. And since at 2 it is an open circle, that means it's also parentheses on the 2. So that is interval notation. Part B, my graph starts from -3 and it ends at 7. I'm just looking for the shaded area. On the -3, it's a solid dot, so it's square bracket. On the 7, it is open circle, so parentheses. Now graph C. Oh, I forgot to shade that one. I need to shade both ends because they're connected by the or, by the union. So now my graph starts from the -infinity, stops at -2. It is a closed circle at -2, so that's square bracket. -infinity is parentheses. Then on the right portion of the graph, I start with 3. Keep on going forever to the right to infinity. 3 is open circle. That means both of these are going to be parentheses. Since again I'm keeping both parts of the graph, I'm going to need to connect them with a union symbol. That's intervalnotation. Now let's do a few more examples. Number 2, my graph is pointing to the right from 1, and I'm going to shade everything. And you can see, let me quickly graph the other ones as well, actually. So this one, again, you need to separate them. So it's x is greater or equal to 1. Then x is less than or equal to 2. So I'm going to shade the middle part. All real number, well, that is a line that goes from left all the way to the right with everything shaded. Now let's write some intervalnotation. My graph started at 1. It goes all the way to the right to infinity. So at 1, because it's a solid dot, that's going to be square bracket. For infinity, parentheses. The second graph, it starts from 1 and ends at 2. Both are solid dots, so both are going to be square bracket. Number 4, my graph on the left side starts from an arrow, so negative infinity, goes all the way to the right, still side an arrow, so it's infinity. Because of these, bullet point 3 says they are going to be parentheses. Okay, now let's actually fill out a table that includes inequality, graph, intervalnotation, and some solutions. So first, number 5, I'm going to graph it. At -1 is an open circle pointing to the left, shade. At 2 is an open circle pointing to the right, shade. So I'm going to, based on that, write my interval notation. Start from an arrow, so negative infinity. Stops at -1. Open circle, so it's going to be parenthesis, parenthesis. At 2, then goes all the way to the right to infinity. Open circle and infinity, both are parentheses. And I'm going to need to connect them with a union symbol. For the solution part, it says in the instruction is on the top, circle the numbers that are solutions. So 0 is like in the middle, like here. That is clearly not a solution. It's not in the shaded area. -10 is on the left side, so that is. 400 is on the right, bigger than 2, so that works. -1, however, this open circle means I'm not including the -1. So -1 is not going to be a solution. Now number 6, from the graph you can see it is right here at -15 to the right. X is greater or equal to -15. Then I can write my interval notation starting from, my graph starts from -15, going all the way to the right to infinity. Because it's a solid dot at -15, so it's going to be square bracket. Next, 0 is greater than, that's how that works. And since this time we have a square bracket or a solid dot on the graph or an equal sign in the inequality, -15 is included, so it is a solution. 400 is a solution, but -300 is not. Next, if you are given the interval notation, let's draw a graph first. Start from -5 is a solid dot, and then it's greater than, so you can see that's where my graph started, so it's going to go to the right until I actually got to 2. At 2 is a closed circle, so I'm going to shade the middle part, which means my 2 is actually pointing to the left, because this part is going to be smaller than 2. So now I can write my inequality, start from -5, less than or equal to x, which is less than 2. And you can also start from just at 2, write the inequality. Start from -5, then ends at 2. 0 is in between, it works. -5 is the endpoint, that is solid point, so it works. -3 works, it's in between, 400 is not, and 2 is an open circle, so 2 is not included. Now number 8, very similar to number 7. Start from -3 to the right. Again, you can separate them. That's x greater than -3. So it's to the right. And at 5, that is to the left. I'm shading the middle part. So my answer would be interval notation. Start from -3, because that's where my graph started, to 5. That is an open circle, so parentheses. That is a solid dot, so square bracket. -3 is parentheses, so it's not included. -1000 is not in there. 3.5 is, and 5 is a solid point, so that is also included. Now a few more. Number 9. graph less than or equal to 0, pointing to the left, shading everything. And to write my interval notation, start from an arrow, so negative infinity, stops at 0. 0 is a solid point, so it's going to be square bracket, but negative infinity is parentheses. Negative 100 works, 100 doesn't. 0 is a solid point right here, or square bracket on the interval notation, so 0 is included. 1 is not a solution. Next, you can see I start from 4 and going all the way to infinity. That means I'm looking for any number that is greater than 4. Now I can start graphing, open circle pointing to the right with everything shaded to the right. So 0 is not in there, negative 4 is not in there, 4 is greater than, or parentheses, or open circle, so 4 is not included, but 4.33 is. Next, less than, negative 2/3, so pointing to the left, shade everything. My graph, my interval notation will start at an arrow, so negative infinity, stops at negative 2/3, both are parentheses. 1 is not in there, negative 1 is in there, 0 is not in there, but negative 2 is in there. For number 12, let's make sure our x is on the left side first, so that's going to become x is greater or equal to negative 9. Now I can actually graph. Negative 9 is right here, is pointing to the right. 0 is an open circle right here, pointing to the right as well. But the connection word is right here, or that means I need to shade everything. So I'm going to shade everything starting from negative 9. Now when I actually write my interval notation, I just can look at the graph. My graph starts at negative 9, and both are arrows pointing to the right, so my graph stops at infinity. Negative 9 is included, so square bracket, solid point. Infinity is parentheses. Now you might be wondering, wait, but this 0 doesn't have an equal sign. Yeah, it doesn't. However, since we shaded everything to the right of negative 9, then because of that, 0 is also included. So when we write interval, it's still included. As for the solutions, negative 10 is not a solution, negative 9 is, 0 is, 1 is, and 9 is a solution. So that is everything for the first part of 3.2, where we just talked about interval notations. Thank you.